Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of the Stage Racing Podcast. We got a full one today. We got a full one on tap here, joined as always by my co-host, Cody St. John. Cody, first time we were able to watch a race together since the fall race at Martinsville this past year, and we're talking all things Martinsville today, so you guys stay tuned. All right, Cody, we were just talking a little bit. I was asking if you've recovered at all. You said you were feeling pretty good. I'm still a little on the dehydrated end. For people wondering, we didn't drink that much. It was just one of the hotter days of the year so far, and the heat took it out. But you're doing pretty good, huh?
Yep, just a little bit of sunburn that's already went to tan, but
Yeah,
just managed to stay hydrated, and I'm ready to go.
we're definitely both doing better than the Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott fan that we saw at the end of the race, but we'll save that one for a little bit later. Everybody was doing better than them. So well, let's jump into it, man, because I texted you earlier today and I was like, I got to go on a rant. So I'm going to make sure I leave time for my rant that I'm going on here in a little bit. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I apologize. I'll be glancing back and forth to my screen here to look at our notes. So let's start with this. We set our over under at 12 for hot dogs for the weekend. What did your final number end up being, Cody?
Well, I only managed to get 10, so
It's a
I'll
valiant
see.
effort. It's a
Yeah,
valiant effort. I
not you.
uh, I took down 8. Um, but that was just between Friday and Saturday. I actually did not have a single hot dog on Sunday, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself, but I kind of also am glad that I didn't because as we were talking this morning, um, the pain that hit, if I'd have thrown on some more hot dogs on top of the pain that hit then, if you guys didn't see our video from Saturday, we posted on our Facebook page. We put a little reel. The motto for the weekend was the dogs are going, the drinks are flowing, and then this morning we added to it, the toilets exploding. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's race
And the
weekend in a
dude, and the
nutshell.
dude wipes are wiping.
And the dude wipes are wiping. Exactly right. Exactly right. So, hey, I had to also start, since it's Victory Monday here for Denny Hamlin, I had to bust out the shirt for you. I did wash it, by the way, since I did wear it yesterday. So you're not sitting here going, I can't believe he's sitting in that sunscreen, sweat
Hey,
soaked, stinking shirt.
hey, I'm not hating on superstitions. I mean, if you want to wear that for next week, I mean, I'm
No,
not gonna hate on you.
no, the smell of Sunoco racing fuel mixed with body odor mixed with sunscreen does not smell great. So
I
Tide
think your
Pods
wife.
took care of that this morning. I made sure to get that taken care of. So, anyways, well, let's start with the truck race because I imagine we're going to talk about the Xfinity race for a little bit. So I'll let you do your instant reaction on the truck race. I know you didn't get to watch all of it, but you got to watch some of it.
Yeah, well, a little bit I did get to watch. Heim was dominating pretty much the entire thing. He had some unfortunate luck there to get knocked out of the race, if I remember right.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if not for that, he probably would have won that race. But all in all, the truck race is always just a really good product, as we've talked about for numerous weeks now. So I'm upset that I didn't get to finish watching the whole thing. But I know you did. And,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, man, live and in person, and got the VIP treatment on the night too. Shout out to the title sponsor of the race, Boys and Girls Clubs of the Blue Ridge, former place of employment for me. Had great relationships with everyone there, and thankful that the executive director thought of me and offered me and my family some sweet tickets. We had already bought regular general admission tickets, and we just looked at it as a free upgrade, and it was great. Best part of all of it was the VIP parking pass that worked for the entire weekend, but I only used it Friday and Saturday. But no, it was a great race. Corey Heim I mean, he was dominant in practice. He was dominant in qualifying. Just really put the beat down on everyone until one of the restarts. Honeycutt got into him, cut a tire, and then all Hades broke loose in that race at that point. Your dominant truck went out. Honeycutt and Majeski go at it for a little bit. They end up wrecking each other, and then when it's all said and done, Daniel Hemrick wins. Hemrick, of course, had an Xfinity Series ride, has been bounced around a little bit this year, decided to take a step down into the Truck Series. And I think it's paying off for him. I think it was a smart move by him in the grand scheme of things. And he gets the win this week. The Toyotas and trucks are always fast in Martinsville and continued this week as well. So I'll give it an A-plus truck race. It was a really good truck race. And the trucks always, like you said, they put on such a great show at Martinsville. And they've been running Martinsville since the series began. I think the one thing I'm extremely happy for this year is they finally brought them back both race weekends at Martinsville. For the last 2 years, they've only raced the final weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So it was great to have them back for both races this year, and it was a good product. It was a good race for sure. All right, man. Xfinity race. Let's set the stage. This is when we first hooked up together for the weekend and got to hang out. Got to hang out with you and your wife and a couple of your friends from Russburg for the Ticketmaster rep. and First of all, it was a great time just getting to hang out. We spent some time down at the Hollers and got some free merch and bought some other merch. And then made our way in and enjoyed some cold drinks and hot dogs. But before things got crazy in this race, what was your initial reaction to the Xfinity race? I mean, I thought it was going pretty good until it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, we said it, up until probably the last 100 laps. Um, I mean, yeah, there were cautions throughout. But I mean, that's pretty normal when you're going to have the type of racing that we were having prior to the ending.
hmm
So yeah, I mean, I remember you took your headset off at one of the cautions early on, and you were like, "Why I don't understand how NASCAR watches this and doesn't want this every Sunday."
Yes.
And so, you know,
Not how it ended.
er,
Not how it ended, but the
yeah,
package of cars
correct,
in itself.
correct. We're talking about the package. We're talking about the early racing, and um, you know, we're talking about when Connor Zillage is out there just dominating the race. I mean, just coming away from the first initial part of the race, he really impressed me. A lot of time first timers in Martinsville don't do that well. And he was putting on a show. He worked through lap
Kid's
traffic,
talented. He's so
not a
good.
mark on his car.
Until it was.
So until it was, and it wasn't even his fault the very
hmm
first time. And
hmm
after that, that was about all she wrote. It was just kind of inevitable from there. But um, yeah, before all the chaos, I would have given it probably an A
hmm
easily on the grading
hmm
scale. It was fantastic.
For sure. And you talk about his car and not having a scratch on it. I remember MRN was talking about the same thing. And then there's some pit stops in one of the cautions, and he goes a little further back because some guys pitted and some guys didn't. And the guys who didn't pit have a really bad restart. They spin the tires, it bottlenecks everyone up.
Mm.
Next thing you know, Zilich's hood is sticking up. And it's like from that point on is when things went south. And
Yeah.
so on our notes here, I just put Xfinity. What are we doing with three question marks? I mean, oh my gosh, man. 250 total laps we're supposed to be running this one. I think we end up doing 253 or maybe a little bit more. With there was a little overtime, but 100 laps under the yellow flag, including a red flag at one point. It was about a 20 to 25-minute red flag, if I'm not mistaken, to clean up after a major wreck. What's going on, Cody? What? Give me something, man.
I mean, you could have fooled me. I would have thought I was out there in a NASCAR Heat 5 lobby.
Seriously.
Um, you know, it just, I just think there's a lack of respect and a lack of accountability on the track. I'm just going to say it for what it is. It's not a car product issue. I don't think I really think it's just an accountability and, just a respect issue with these drivers. And, I just think that they're out there and Kevin Harvick's touched on it. I know Denny's touched on it. A bunch of the veteran drivers or retired drivers have touched on it that there's just not this sort of, pride or care aspect when it comes to your car. It's okay, owner buys it. They're lucky to have me as driving it, and I'm going to go run whoever over to win a race and
hmm
or finish in the top five or get my career best finish. And it's not about what's next week hold. Are we going to bring this car to another track? Are we going to bring it back? There's just not that anymore. And so I definitely think there needs to be a much higher level of accountability because that's going to carry over to make a much better product.
hmm
And ultimately, what we care about, not that we don't care about the early parts of the race, but we're there to see the finish.
hmm
And the finish we got was a travesty. And literally, I mean, Dale Jr. said it best. Martinsville Speedway deserves better.
100%.
So I agree with Dale Jr. on this. I think, Martinsville deserves better. It deserves a better product. And now, as we've seen on social media since late Saturday night, Martinsville's been very not talked highly about on social media, and that's from some of the Xfinity drivers too. And that's just it's discouraging, especially for us because we're a little biased. I'm not gonna lie, because we are born and bred Martinsville, folk. But still, this track's always put on a spectacular product, spectacular races. It's been great in Xfinity until this past Saturday.
It got
So
really bad.
it
Yep.
did. So I'm really hoping that they're going to figure this out before the fall.
I think this is a product of a few things. Youth, drivers who are pressing way too much to take that next step, and you don't need to do that. Denny said it best on his podcast today. As a car owner, talking about Sammy Smith, if I see you do something like that, I don't want you on my team.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to run the bill up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's also a product of the format that NASCAR has created, with the win and get in and the playoffs, and you can say what you want about it. That's done it. And it just, I lost my last train of thought here, but it's just like, we don't have to do this. These cars at this track are too good. And this particular package, the Xfinity package, is too good to do this. We've seen it time and time again. A couple of springs ago when you weren't here and I was, we're sitting there texting like, this is incredible. There's tire fall off. There's disparity, right? There's comers and there's goers. You ain't got to run someone up into the wall to get around them. Race them. The problem is, I don't think these guys know how to. That's what it really comes down to. And it's just like, there's just no remorse whatsoever for it. And it's just crazy. I've seen a few tweets. It's like, if they'll let them fight, we won't have this. And I'm like, well, to an extent, I do get that. But in the same sense, you need to protect your driver. You don't want somebody getting hurt, missing a race because they're fighting. But there needs to be some kind of accountability there. I also think, I just regained my train of thought. NASCAR loves this type of entertainment. They're starting to turn into WWE type. We saw this with UFC at one point in time. I don't know if you remember that. It was like ten years or so ago with UFC started doing this, and then they stopped it, and now you've got an incredible product there. NASCAR's walking this very thin line, and they got to get it together. They're wanting that entertainment value. They're pressing too hard to get it. Let it come naturally. It will come. And yeah, I just didn't like it. And I think what rubbed me the most is Sammy Smith gets ticked off because Tanner Gray moved him. And I don't think Gray's move was all that bad to move Sammy
No,
Smith compared to what we
no.
saw. And then I could see it coming. We couldn't talk to each other. It's loud. But I don't know if they come down the front stretch. They come out of two, and I'm like, he's not lifting. He's not going to lift. And then you see him get further down the backstretch. I'm like, he's still not lifting. And there he went, just ran him up into the wall, and he took him out. That's one thing. But he took his teammate out, who was running
For
the
the
Dash for
cash,
Cash, who
yes,
had
yep.
$100,000 coming to his team. And not only that, Sammy Smith had put himself in position to run for $100,000. So you look at potential $200,000 that Junior Motorsports lost that night, in addition to all the other damage that then happened when they destroyed both their race cars. I mean, it's just, come on, man. Like, come on.
So, I told myself while watching him go down the backstretch going into turn three when he did what he did, I told myself, and as we're watching, I said, he's going to Austin Dillon this, no
hmm
question. He did.
hmm
And, to go back to one of the other points, it was one of the points that I made during the race. And this is a very minute point now after, things have you know, kind of settled a little bit.
hmm
But, we talked about it during the race about how they had no more sticker tires.
They
They
did
were all
not give them that many
studs.
tires. Yep.
And it's like, maybe NASCAR gives them one more set. You know, some of these younger guys have got a little bit better control. Not saying they shouldn't be able to learn how to save these tires and work that because ultimately, if you want to make that next step, that's something you've got to do.
Maybe it's not as
Um,
much desperation either,
correct. So,
because
I
you got
mean,
a little bit more grip. You feel like you can actually drive instead of
and
having to
I'm
be
not
physical.
saying, and I'm not saying NASCAR's got to baby him, but bro,
Mm-mm,
but honestly, they should probably have, I know the budgets are much smaller. Don't get me
mm-mm.
wrong. I'm fully aware of that. But they probably should have more tires, especially at short tracks,
I was
because
surprised because
they're going to burn through
it was there was like over 100 laps or so left in the race when I went and used the bathroom, and you were down
them.
there
You told
getting
me that.
food, and I come into you and I'm like, there's only like pretty much everyone's out of stickers, and you're like,
It
they're
was
out of what?
100. It was
I'm like, they're out of
120
stickers, dude.
laps. It was
Yep.
120 laps left when you told me that, because I remember I looked up at the TV when you saw me. And I was like, "Are you?" I was like, "You're kidding!" And you told
Yeah.
me that, and I was like,
It was
"There's no
like two
way."
teams,
And
2 or 3 teams that still had stickers, and they weren't even running up toward the front. It was teams in the back, and so yeah, I mean that could do it. So that begs the question of what do we do to fix it? Maybe that's one piece of it. I still don't think that's the end all be
mhm.
all. It would have helped some. One, you got to you. I don't know if you should suspend Sammy Smith, but a points penalty's got to come, and a
I,
major one at that.
I'm. They didn't
You
suspend
got to send
Austin
a
Dillon.
message, and I'm not
They
big
didn't.
for sending a message, but a message
I'm
needs
not
to be sent.
either. They did suspend Austin Dillon, but also too, I take this is a different series,
Hmm.
um, and you gotta. They're younger. You gotta get to them. You know, us as parents, you gotta cut them at the knees sometimes. And honestly, I think a suspension is warranted. Personally, I think not because of just hauling off into turn three and sending him up, chucking him up the
Hmm.
track, but for all the other damage caused to all the other vehicles, to jeopardizing, everyone else's safety and, costing his team. And if I'm Junior and you cost me a chance at $200,000, I'm like, you're sitting next week.
I imagine
Like
that was a little awkward this morning at their competition meeting.
I'll be
Maybe not
eager.
awkward, but it was probably
I
uncomfortable when it
wonder,
needed to be.
I wonder if I haven't listened to his podcast and I
I
don't know if he
haven't
even
yet. I'll
came out
be
today.
interested. I don't think he's put it out yet,
I,
but that's going to be a listen for sure.
yeah, because I'm wondering if he'll be public about that or, because they're going to ask him. And
I
so
mean,
I'm
he's usually
wondering what
pretty
he'll say.
transparent about things. Yeah,
He
he'll probably be a
is.
little PC over it, but
Yeah.
because he has to be in the role that he is, but he also needs to let people know what he thinks about it, for
Also,
sure.
and you made another good point, and this is a much bigger thing. And maybe I'm just kind of talking out the side of my mouth here, but you talk about the playoff system, and this is kind of what this has created. You know, Granted, we don't like it in the Cup Series, but is this something that we need to look at of like the Xfinity and trucks not having a playoff system
Well,
or something a little different?
something different because, dude, we just saw this and it was March 30th or 29th. What do we do in October, in the last weekend of October, when there's a spot for a Final Four on the line? You thought 100 laps of caution was bad? We're liable to run 175 and 250 in the fall under caution if they're going to drive like this. Surely it should fix itself by then. And I think whatever comes out of this will. But, you talk about this suspension. I don't, I, I wouldn't be upset if they suspended him, I guess, but I don't think they will with the new rules around suspension and stuff this year. I think that's going to be his saving grace. But if they gave Denny that, 15, 20 point penalty when he admitted to wrecking Ross on a podcast, and Sammy Smith gets out and he's like, yeah, I dumped him. I felt like it's the only thing I had to do because that's what he would have done to me. He's going to try to take the do unto others as they would do unto you, or, like, give me a break, dude. But it's coming. He's going to get something, for sure. And even Denny talked about it today. We all remember the infamous move he put on Chase Elliott. He even said, I was just trying to move Elliott. Sammy Smith was trying to destroy. Uh, um, Now I can't even think, what's his name. Oh my gosh, dude, I'm getting so old. I can't think of the driver's name, but he was trying to destroy him. I mean, he really was. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll see what comes of it. It's got to get better, and it sucks because, me and you both have talked about how much we love the. If you listen to our podcast at all, you know how much we love the Xfinity series, and it just kind of sucked, that the track that we hold near and dear to our heart, like you said, has had so much bad publicity this week. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but let me set the stage here. It's not the track. It is far from the track. And depending on the series you want for the Xfinity series, let me tell you what the problem is right there. It's these guys are being idiots. It's not the track. These guys are being idiots. But I showed you something during the race. I showed you a tweet that the most cautions ever in an Xfinity race at Martinsville was 20. And that happened in 2006. Well, what happened after 2006? The Xfinity Series stopped coming to Martinsville until I think it was supposed to be 2020, but with COVID, I think it pushed into
16
2021,
years.
16
Yeah.
years. And so I guess that'd be 2022, but um, that's what happened. And I've enjoyed having 3 series there. It's been great. I mean, from a racing standpoint, you get 3 races to watch, right? But the experience Xfinity Series has come. It's been a great product. Like, don't let this one ruin it. Let's get these guys in line and not have any huge knee jerk reactions to pulling, a good race from a great track, because it's not the track. It is not the track. Now everyone keeps saying when people get there they lose their minds. All right, Well, the track ain't make you lose your mind. Trust me. There's some crazy things in Martinsville, Virginia. I see it every single day. But but rolling up and in there and start acting like you ain't got no sense isn't one of them, right? Like there's not something floating in the air. I've lived here basically my whole life. Over the few years I lived somewhere else, but I don't act like that all the time. I'm definitely not perfect, but come on. I mean, it just, I don't know. And I mean, heck, I love racing go karts, and if you and I were out there, I'd probably do something stupid to you, but I don't think I'd do something even as bad as what they were doing. I'd try to race you a little bit. I wouldn't make it completely unfair. You know what I mean? So
Appreciate it.
I don't know, dude. That's just what a crappy way to put the bow on what we thought was going to be a great thing. And even our friend Brandon pointed out in a text message he was listening Sunday driving up to the race about to our podcast. Appreciate it, Brandon. And he was like, "Oh, we said Xfinity's probably going to steal the show." And he's like, "They did, but the irony of how they did it is kind of funny." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're not wrong. They definitely stole the show um, to an extent, and it just sucks how they did it." So, anything else to add on the Xfinity series, man?
No, yeah, I think you summed it up beautifully there at the end.
Well, that'll wrap up stage one. So stage two here, let's roll in and let's talk the cup race. So just your initial thoughts of the cup race, and hold on before we get into um, any of the things that I want to talk
Yeah,
about. So
yeah,
yeah, just your initial thoughts of the cup
yeah.
race.
I think it was probably the best Martinsville race we've had in this gen car. Let's just put it overall. I definitely think that's warranted to say. I thought the racing was pretty good, especially early on. We had some good battles all the way throughout. There was good battles throughout the entire pack too. It wasn't
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
just up front or in the middle or whatever. So um, some unfortunate luck for some heavy hitters. I expected to contend like Cindric and Barry. Barry was one I was really disappointed
Yeah,
in.
I don't have this on here. Ford, what are you doing? Look, everybody jokes about Fords, right? I have a Ford. I drive a Ford, and I always get those jokes. But oh my gosh, you're not doing yourself any favors every single week. We talked about it last week. I didn't put it on this one. Another Ford issue. This week is batteries. I mean, Cindric changed batteries so much. Penske ran out of batteries. They
Yeah,
ran out of batteries. Like,
they did.
what are we
And
doing?
and on top of that, with Barry, the fourth expansion
He
Penske team,
was. You were so
they
bummed.
changed they changed twice,
Yeah,
and
I remember
um,
how bummed you were because he was running really good, and he
he'd
looked
worked
like a
himself
car to
all the
have a
way
good
back
day.
up to
Hmm.
he'd worked himself all the way back up to the one lap down and was running. I mean, I was watching him consistently, and he was
He was
just, I mean, he
probably
was
going to get on
blowing
the
up
lead lap
cars.
and then have a
He
chance.
was.
Yep.
He was.
Yep.
And but then the battery just kept dying. They kept having the voltage issue, the same as Cindric. And so I disappointed there. But all in all, like I said, I thought it was a good race. I thought there at the beginning there was a little bit of follow the leader as we kind of suspected
Hmm.
until you start to get
Hmm.
that tire fall off. But like I said, I would probably give the overall race probably a solid B plus.
Yeah,
Being
and I
maybe
think
like
that's
you know a B plus.
yeah, I think that's fair. And compared to what we've seen, um,
That's the biggest
last
thing.
fall, I think last fall that race, a lot of people are saying is the best in the next gen. What ruined it for me, it could have been one of the best elimination NASCAR races we've had in a while, but they decided to start doing some team manipulation, and that kept us from having what should have been a better finish than what we got in the fall. So that kind of tarnished it for me. But for this one, yeah, like you said, man, I felt like it was a really good race, and I'll get on to this here in a few minutes. But for everyone who's saying that it's boring, you won't in the stands, I don't think, because if you were in the stands, especially where we were sitting right there at turn two, and there was some battles coming out of that turn, man. There were some cars fishtailing, there were some guys moving. People weren't controlling their cars like they had been in this one. The tires were falling off. I texted you at one point because we were sitting a little ways away from each other and was like, "Look at the numbers on the car. They're not white. They're not white anymore." You could barely make out the first number one in Denny's 11, and he was the lead car. Yeah, it's black as your shirt. And so again, I'll go on to this in a little bit. Let's set our expectations before we start saying this thing was the worst
Sure.
race ever. And but anyways, I'll hold that. Moving on, some other notes I had. Ty Gibbs still can't catch a break. Um, I've watched that one a little bit more. I don't know if you have. He got
Yeah, I
told
rewatched.
low. It was probably a little too soon. I think Reddick was probably a little bit more aggressive than he needed to be, but
Mhm.
Ty obviously pretty upset over that one. If you got anything to add on that.
Yeah, funny thing. So when we got home last night, told you I got home late. So I was putting the kids down, feeding the baby. I got the TV on typically, and I go see what's on usually just to hear some noise. Well, the race was on, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna rewatch it. So I rewatched a majority of it because after I put her down, I stayed up and rewatched most of it on the TV broadcast. Um, Anyway, I'm not going to talk about Fox. That's not on the docket tonight. But anyway, Mike Joy was on one though. Let me just say that out loud for everybody. Mike Joy was in on one yesterday, and I don't know, but I wish he would bring that energy every week. Not saying he was, right, but dude, he was fired up about a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
not
his
just
dumpster
Xfinity.
fire comment on the Xfinity race had me dying. That
Oh
was
yeah.
hilarious.
He was talking about that. He was talking about NHRA. He was on one. So I wish he would go back to bringing that energy every week, but I just don't know at his age if he can just keep up. But anyway, I digress. Um, yeah, I mean, I forgot my point, but
Ty
you
Gibbs,
know,
what we were talking about.
Ty Gibbs,
Anything?
yeah. So I went back and watched that. So thank you. So yeah, I think definitely Reddick was aggressive when I went back and watched that wreck. Just kind of, ran in the back of him, and Gibbs was running good. I
Hmm.
mean, really
He was
throughout the whole race, he
respectable.
was right at the top, top 10, top 15, probably his best run of the season.
100%.
Uh, and honestly, sometimes that's just what you need to kind of get you going. And it's not like you got to go out there and swing for the fences and get a win and think it's all
Hmm.
fixed because next week you can go get a DNF. So, for him, he's just got to string some stuff together to get that confidence back. And I was really, as much as I'm indifferent about the kid, um, I was really hoping he would get at least a top 10, top 15 finish, but just a string of bad luck. And, but hopefully, he can start to kind of see a silver lining from this and say, hey, Adam, I got spun. We worked on a couple other things. We're getting better.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of where I'm at with him. But, yeah.
Yeah, and Tyler Reddick took a little bit of a shot from Austin Dillon in that one too, in that scenario, and so that didn't help matters none. I don't think Tyler was fully wrong for what he did, but
No.
he wasn't right. But it wasn't where Ty get. I think it's just Ty's just frustrated, like he can't catch a
Mhm.
break. But him saying he doesn't want to see me after the race, I'm like, come on, bro. Both of y'all are 5'3" on a good day. Nobody wants to watch y'all fight. Like, come on, there's no way you really thought you were going to fight somebody. Like, come on, give me a break. And Tyler
No.
did the right thing. Tyler did the mature thing. He got out of the car. He went straight to Ty Gibbs and tried to have a conversation. I don't know if you've seen the clip or that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like Ty just wouldn't even listen to him. Like, I get you're mad, but when the guy who wrecks you comes to you right off the bat and is wanting to initiate a conversation to explain what he did and to apologize, like we've seen Reddick do multiple times, give him a chance. He just kept sitting there, give him a little thumbs up, and the old
Mm-hmm.
Trump thumbs up right there, man. I'm like, come on, dude, like, hear him
Yeah.
out.
I
You
mean,
know what I mean? And yeah,
if
but
Gibbs is going to keep that mentality, maybe he needs to go back down to Xfinity with the rest of them.
yeah, yeah. Well, he just wrecks his own teammates in that. So I mean, let's just be honest. Ty, you can't be with so mad. At least this guy's like an alliance with your team. He wasn't your own teammate that you wrecked for no reason when you were locked into the final
Exactly.
four. But that's a
Exactly.
conversation for another day. RFK. What the heck is going on at RFK? Chris Buescher had a little bit, and there is a silver line, and I'll let you talk about him because you've been on this train for a few weeks now. You and I are having conversations, but Chris Buescher had some bad luck. He got caught up he didn't clear Carson Host far early, got spun. But
Mm-hmm.
what the heck is going on with Keselowski, man? Like, I, I asked this question: is it time for Brad to retire? And I hate it because when he had his little resurgence last year and got back there, and I was so fired up. I told you I was like, "Bad Brad is back," and the sport is better when Goofy Brad Keselowski is winning races. It just is. But he has just not been very good this year. Like, what the heck is going on at RFK?
Yeah, I don't know, man. He's avoided the trouble from early on in the first couple races now, and he's run terribly.
I mean,
Uh,
I was out there looking for the six, and I had to wait a little bit before I would see it coming down. I mean, it was just,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. And I mean, I don't know if Martinsville. I mean, he's been okay in Martinsville
he's
historically.
won
He's
a
been
race in
around.
Martinsville,
Yeah,
but he's never
yeah.
been
But,
dominant. But like you said,
no,
he's usually a top 15 car.
yeah. And I mean, so I'm not gonna put a whole stamp on this one because he was around 15th to 20th most of the day. So. I'm not going
I
to put
think
a
he ran
whole.
into some good fortune to get there. He did not have
He
speed right
did,
here.
he did, but honestly, he needed some good fortune because, like I said, he'd been running into all the bad fortune early on.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm not going to put a lot of stock into the whole, like to answer your question, the retire thing, and I don't think you believe that either. But I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into the Martinsville race for him. I think there's still a little bit left in the tank. Um, but the whole team's got to figure something out. Cindric ran well early on in the season, and I mean, look at the battery problems once again, like you said, Ford problem.
Busher. Well, you're thinking Cindric. Cindric's with Penske now.
Oh, Penske. Yeah,
I
sorry,
know. I still
sorry.
associate Brad with Penske too. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, but yeah. So and on to Busher. I mean, Busher started up in the top 10,
He had a great
and
qualifying run. I mean, he started what,
yeah. I
sixth,
mean,
six or
he
seven?
did. Yep, sixth, and he was running well for the first part of the race until he got spun around. And I mean, let's be honest, a lot of times you get spun around, get a little damage. Um, he got spun right there on the front stretch. So Brandon got a good view of that one. So,
Yeah.
uh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
after
what's
that.
crazy? It looked harmless, and but with these cars, these spins look harmless. Like look at Christopher Bell at Homestead. Who would have thought the spin that Bell had at Homestead last week would have ruined his race? But he was nothing after that. The same thing with Busher.
Well, he said that Busher had said on the radio, 'cause I swapped over to his radio for a
Did he
minute,
say it
and
was toe
he
link?
said, "Yep, yep."
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So, and can I just, and I'm gonna stop right here. Can we do something with that, please, NASCAR? Like, can we make those like stand up a little bit better? I mean, goodness
Uh,
gracious. I
Things are
mean,
as fragile as ice, man.
they
Sometimes,
are. So, but anyway, so yeah, but Busher had some unfortunate luck there, and just made for a really rough day for him. He was fighting to stay on the lead lap at the end. Um, so, um, but
well, tell
you only got
tell
one.
us
You only got one good driver.
tell us about your boy Ryan Priest. You had told
Yep.
me
So
watch out for him, and he just like you text
yep.
me. He's like Priest is killing it. I'm like he's been so quiet, and here he is. Have at it,
Top
man. He's
seven.
had he's had a
Yep.
great last few weeks. Go ahead.
So I was
Floor
sitting
is
there and I was
yours.
watching, the top 10, and I was like, oh, I said, there's a 60 up there in the top 10. I said, let me text Adam. Well, sure as the world, as I get my phone out of my pocket on MRN's like, look who's up there in the top 10, Ryan Priest. And I'm like, well, Adam's gonna, hear it before when I text him. So I said, hey, MRN stole my thunder. Look at Ryan Priest up there in the top 10. The guy strung together three straight top 10s. He's been the highlight of RFK racing right now. Um, been one of the better forwards. So I mean, I don't know, man. I think that kid's in the top 12 in points. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Getting a change of
Right
scenery
now,
has done wonders for him. It seems.
it really has, man. It really has, and so I'm excited to continue to see this kid just continue to blossom, and hopefully he can continue to keep the wheels on the ground too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh gosh.
but but I was super excited to see that when I texted you. I was like, man, all right, here we go. So and then like I said, Marshall's not an easy place as
Mm.
we all know. And for that kid to come in and do that with all the other issues that his forward teammates and his other teammates were having, man, great day for that kid.
Yeah. For everyone that said you couldn't pass this weekend, it wasn't great, but a couple guys got it done.
They did.
Um, Another news for note: we found out later Saturday or Sunday night, Eric Jones was disqualified for not meeting minimum weight. A big blow to his playoff chances. He's basically got to win now with that one coming through. NASCAR's not. Here's one thing that I will commend NASCAR for in the switch to next gen is that they've set the rules and they basically stuck to them as far as the technical side of things with what you're doing to your race car. And so yeah, I mean, and Legacy just owned it today. They're not even appealing it. They're not doing nothing. They're like, yeah, we did it. Sorry, let's move on. Um, but the next one I have here, and one that I think we do need to talk about, is I know he's the heel of the sport right now, but he did win this week. But Denny Hamlin's one of the all-time greats in NASCAR. I mean, you got to give it the benefit where it is. 55th win. He's 44 years old. I'm saying he's probably going to go down as the Dan Marino of NASCAR, a really, really good driver slash player who never wins the big one. But you got to respect him for what he is. And with his win yesterday, he is now older than Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, or Jeff Gordon were for their final race. or final win in NASCAR. And you and I look at each other, and I think back to when we saw Kurt win his last one. Of course, Kurt's career ended the way that none of us wanted it to. But you saw Jimmy and you see Jeff, and it was like when they won their last one, it was like a big deal. And it was kind of like, do you really think they could win again? Probably not. But you look at Denny, and you're like, he's probably got 2 or 3 more left in him this year at minimum. They're going to go to Bristol here in a couple of weeks. Heck, next week at Darlington, he's won that race a few times. So I know people don't like him, but you got to recognize what it is, man. And he's doing this while he's running one of the best podcasts out there in NASCAR right now. One of the most listened to for sure. Whether you like it or not, you're going to listen to it. He owns a race team. He's suing the sport that he loves because he doesn't like the way they're doing it. They're looking pretty good in that lawsuit early on. And all this just doesn't faze him. He just keeps it trucking.
I mean, guess he whipped out that flag and said 11 against the world.
11 against the world.
And, my first initial reaction to that was, all right, that's a little cheesy, Denny. Come on, man.
Well,
Like, you're
he
the
did. If you listen,
but
I know you probably haven't got to listen to the podcast yet. A fan gave that to him, actually. Because he jumped on the Ohio State bandwagon this year. They had the Ohio against the world, and he was on ESPN, and I know. And, for you listening, Jay, boo. But one of the Ohio State players took their flag, and they never got it back after the national championship. So the fan who actually gave it to him, he said it's a Penn State fan, but he thought it would be funny to give it to him. And then when he got it, he was like, oh, we're holding on to that. If we win a race, we're going to bust it out. And so I don't think it's something you're going to see all the time. I think it's just something he kind of did because he liked the irony in it.
For sure. And I can appreciate it, like I said. I think I'm not, going to the Denny rap, I don't still understand why people give him such a rap of not liking him. I think a lot of times you still have some of those like traditional NASCAR drivers, or not drivers, but fans that don't really appreciate the vocalness of, and the platform that he has, and the drivers have nowadays versus back, in the grassroots era, whatever we want to call it.
He's the biggest needle mover in the sport right now.
He is.
We talk about the sport needs more personalities. We need more people. Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, people love them. They sell a ton of merch. But are they bringing more new fans to the sport?
No.
I don't know, man. I feel like more of your purists are going that way. Denny's bringing people in, be it through himself or through a team that he owns. He's bringing people into the sport.
We're at that point. And I'm at that point now where we need to appreciate Denny. Like, that's the thing. If, he's on that back end of his career, he's doing a lot of things to try to continue to move this sport to where he wants to see it.
He has raced.
You want to see it?
He's racing like every gen you can think of. Yep. He raced in the same cars that Gordon and Earnhardt were racing in to an extent. He then raced in the crappy car tomorrows.
The Gen 4s. He raced in the car tomorrows. He raced in the Gen 6s.
6 and 7, and he's won a race in every single one. I mean, and everyone's like, well, he ain't won a championship. You know how much harder it is to win a championship now than it used to be? I mean, he should have won a championship and he choked it away. But come on, man. This sport is more than championships. This isn't like anything else.
That's why people crap on Gordon so much, because they're like, oh, he only won his 3 championships in the 90s and one in 2001, and then won another one. Do you know how hard it is? You ain't seen nobody. You haven't seen anybody else sniff 4. Tony Stewart won 2 early ones and never got another one. So,
besides JJ, but that's a whole different thing.
They mastered the playoff aspect. That's a whole nother podcast in itself. And you're gonna get me on my soapbox, and I'm not here to talk about it. So,
we could talk about how Penske's figured out this format. We can go on and on, but you said, give the man his flowers. I know you don't like him, but come on, no one had a problem with Denny Hamlin until he wrecked Chase. And the thing is, he admitted that he was wrong for doing it. So, what else do you want from it? All he does is whine. I'm like, the dude's personality has basically been exactly the same his whole career.
He's more vocal now. I thought about that.
He's definitely more vocal now.
He's more vocal now than he used to be. But also, too, he's the veteran now. So, you look at that growth process, that arc, so to speak, and he's where he needs to be. And I can appreciate him so much more because he wants to see the sport go to new heights. And as do me and you, like I said a second ago. And so I appreciate him more now than I ever have. And I've never had a huge problem with Denny. I mean, sure, he went through on streaks to win a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm tired of seeing Denny win. But I never really hated the guy like a lot of people do. Standing there in the stands yesterday, and he's doing that burnout, right in front of you,
Yeah,
people just giving him the bird, and I'm like,
yeah. 11 fans
why?
were all over the stands, man, showing the 11s. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. So
I'm
I
gonna
don't know.
lose my camera for a second, but I want to share something with you that I saw just a little bit ago on X.
Yeah.
Denny now tied Kel Yarborough for the most wins in the 11 car, 55,
Hmm.
and the 11 car is now the only number in NASCAR that has seen 50 plus wins. So cool little NASCAR history statistic for you there. So people talk about Kel Yarborough, one of the greatest in NASCAR. I
He
mean,
also tied Rusty Wallace.
yeah, for wins at Martinsville, right? With five. Yep.
Well, no, also I think
Oh,
career wins too, right?
oh, you know what? You might be
With
right.
50, yeah, 50, with 55 wins, I'm pretty sure he tied Rusty Wallace for career wins so far. So I mean,
Mhm.
he'll surpass that if I had to guess.
His goal is 60. For people who don't know, Denny feels like 60 is a huge mark. He often kind of looks at Mark Martin because a lot of people compare him to Mark Martin, and Mark Martin had over 60, and so that's a huge milestone for him. I think, and he's right. If you hit 60 wins in NASCAR, you're elite. I mean, it just is
In
what it
this day
is.
and age, in this
Yeah.
competitive era,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, like no
Mm-hmm.
questions asked.
100%. Well, let's keep it moving here because we're already 40 minutes in and I ain't even got started. We talked earlier about how we think that this is the best next gen race at Martinsville or could be, and I'm going to get onto that. But let me start with my little time here. Put me on the clock. Goodyear's doing a good job, okay? We keep talking about tires, and for a while we were talking about tires. I got to give Goodyear credit where credit's due. This is a good tire for the product that we have. Understand, it's not the best tire we've ever had. This is a good tire for the product that we have. I think they can get a little bit more aggressive. But again, go listen to Actions Detrimental. We're giving a free commercial here if you haven't yet. Denny had someone on there who works on a crew for IMSA, ISMA, and knows Denny, and he's like an engineer there. And this guy gave an unbelievable insight into tires, and he made a good point. We want Goodyear to be a little bit more aggressive, but you're starting to walk a fine line of race tires are almost still completely built by hand to an extent. It's not like tires on your car are still built by are being built by robots. So you're hitting the limits of what Goodyear can do, right? So we're there. I really think, and people say we need an option tire. We do not need an option tire. NASCAR does not need to turn it into F1. It does not. All right? Because then all y'all would talk about is give them softer tires so we don't have to see them pick which different ones. We don't want that. Because y'all just going to complain about it no matter what. Goodyear's doing a good job. I think this is the best year Goodyear's had. Could they get a little bit more aggressive? They could. But in the same sense, you look at that darn track after the race on Sunday, there's rubber everywhere. I mean, and let us not forget, Denny in the fall had to go to a backup car because a piece of rubber shot up into his engine and stuck the throttle going into one of the turns. So how much more do we want? We're getting fall off. I think the biggest thing is, and they made a good point today, is when they're doing these tire tests, you're seeing fall off about lap 35, 40. But when you go put all these guys on the track at one time, you're getting so much rubber coming off, it's filling in the pores of the track. So you're not getting tire fall off till you get to lap 50, 45,
Yep.
50, 60. And so with the way these runs are going now, with some shorter runs, you're not having the comers and goers like you are because the tires aren't really wearing. But that leads me to this: is this a car issue? Is this a track issue? Or is this a tire issue? I was ticked today when Gluck's poll comes up about is this a good race? And the last time I looked, it's 50-50, yes or no.
It's 51-49 yes to no. I voted on it a little bit ago.
And I start scrolling through the comments on it, and I see something that says, should Martinsville lose a race? Timeout. Heck no, Martinsville should not lose a race because before these crappy cars came along, everyone was talking about we need more tracks like Martinsville. The whole reason Auto Club got shut down is because we love short tracks so much. NASCAR sold the opportunity to potentially make a crap ton of money. That was probably the biggest reason by selling that land, but then also creating a short track because in the previous generation cars, what did we want, Cody? We wanted more short tracks and we wanted more um, road courses.
Of
And
courses.
now we've got more road courses. We actually do have more short tracks when you think of North Wilkesboro until they took Richmond away this year. And what do we have? A crappy product that you cannot pass on a track. And you're saying the oldest track right here on the circuit, the most historical track we have right now, you're saying let's take a race from it? Get out of here, man. This is not what the sport needs. This is not what this needs. This is a car issue, 100% a car issue. I just said what I said about the tires, okay? We've about reached our limit. You're not going to get but so much more. We had the Bristol Spring race last year. We had 53 lead changes. Something was up with those tires. I like Denny's theory of someone peed in the mixture. Something was going on for sure, because that was such an anomaly that we've seen now. Something didn't make sense. But this is not a tire issue. We're done with the tires. Let's stop talking about tires. Let's not talk about option tires. Let's not talk about making them softer. Let's fix these darn cars that suck on short tracks. At the end of the day, that's what this is. When aerodynamics are the lead difference of whether you've got a really good car or a decent car or a bad car at a short track, we have a problem. Ring the bell, sound the alarm, stop what we're doing, fix it. I've been preaching on this for years. Take the diffusers off these stupid things. Do something with the spoilers. Whatever you've got to do. Get some kind of character underneath the car instead of having it flat like an airplane wing, like we talked about in the Daytona 500. Please do something. The last thing you need to do is take a race from one of the best tracks that we have on the circuit. It is not a track issue. It is not a Martinsville issue. Do not blame this on Martinsville Speedway, whether it's people not knowing how to drive in the Xfinity Series or these cars not being able to pass all that well in the Cup Series. It ain't a track issue. This track's proven itself time and time again. It's been here since 1947. It ain't a track issue. It's not. Fix the cars, NASCAR. Stop being so darn stubborn on this, man. Fix it. I'm done. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could echo everything you just said. I mean, my theme for the season was grassroots. So of course, my
Yes.
feeling is we cannot lose a Martinsville race just because of one weekend. Now, if you want to talk about losing one, 2, 3 seasons ago, sure. Okay, then we could have that conversation. Not that I would have agreed with it then either, but I could have understood.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact now is the tires are where they need to be. Like
We're
there's
getting
like,
better. Think.
and I was
Think of
gonna
the. I'm
go
sorry. Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say. Think of the first next gen race we had here. I've never left a race early before. Cody, I left that race with over 200 laps left because there was not a single pass for the lead under green. You didn't have that. I'm trying to think if you did yesterday or not. Maybe you did. Maybe it was one or two. It wasn't much, but I'll get into that here in a second. But there was passing yesterday. There was passing. The tires
Yeah.
have gotten better. Goodyear has done what Goodyear needs to do. If I'm a Goodyear executive and I keep hearing everyone talk about Goodyear and how they need to do more and this, that, and the other, I'm going to NASCAR and I'm going to say, you've tarnished my name. You've completely
Yeah.
tarnished my name because you've put a crappy
Yeah.
product out there that now everyone's saying it's a Goodyear problem. It ain't a Goodyear problem. All right.
It's a NASCAR problem. It's
It's a
car problem.
NASCAR problem.
So I'm going
100%.
and so I knew you were going to rant. I figured you was going to be the same about as mine. Um, you know, I was on the bandwagon of it's not a tire problem. It's not a track problem. It's a car problem. We've talked
It's a
about
car
this
problem.
time and time again,
Yes.
whether it's just me and you talking, whether it's in a group chat, whether it's on this podcast, whatever. I mean, we could be on the moon. We still talking about it. Doesn't matter. It's a car problem. We got to fix it. We need more horsepower. I don't care what anybody says. That would be the biggest fix. That would
One
be the
more, and I know
easiest,
you're going to say
simplest,
it.
yep, and the shifting,
Thank you.
the horsepower and the shifting. And you've said it time and time again. Now I'm going to get on that bandwagon too. Not that I wasn't on it with you, but I'm just going to reiterate it this time versus you. It's got to go.
It's
If
got
those two things, two of the simplest things that you could get rid of and you could change, wouldn't even cost that much money. The same as you said before, it will fix. It will fix this issue. And honestly, Goodyear at that point would probably have to have a little bit harder of a tire because if you gave it more horsepower, those tires that they got now, they're too soft. Let's just be honest. Let's
it. Hmm.
call it is what it is.
And
But
if you're
still
not
at the same
shifting,
is
because then you'll overdrive the turn and you'll screw them up too.
exactly. And the more horsepower in the rear end, them rear tires gonna go. And you
Yep.
imagine them rear tires being gone at Martinsville. Jesus, them dudes gonna have to get on that gas easy and work that throttle coming out of the
You're
turns.
separating the
Ex-
has-beens from the has-nots.
exactly. And so I'm at the same point. Like it's a car issue. We need to stop worrying about aerodynamics and whether that's like I said, I get it. It needs cookie cutter, and we need to cut costs and save things. But I don't care if you want to make this car for a super speedway in a mile and a half. fan-freaking-tastic. Go keep this. That's fine. But go ahead and make another cookie cutter car for short tracks and road courses because they can realistically run on the same thing. So let's
Yes.
go ahead and do it because, I mean, growing up, they had road course cars, they had short track cars, they had super speedway cars. There were builds specifically that spec'd out, but here we are trying to spec a cookie cutter car out for a short track, for a road course, for super speedway at an intermediate. It
And here,
just can't work.
yep.
It's
Here's
just
the
not.
thing. You're talking about cost cutting. It's been proven time and time again. They're not saving anything compared to what they were. They're
No,
not.
they're not.
It's not.
They're
And
not.
it's even harder now to get sponsors than it's ever been before because I honestly think it's probably more expensive to do it now than what it used to be. Here's the other thing. NASCAR started this whole thing because they wanted more um, uh, parity in the sport. And the first year, next gen, you had that. The second year, not as much. We're now what, 3, 4 years into this? 4 years, right?
4 years, yeah.
This is year four. This is year four. And who's winning the races? The same freaking people who were winning the races before
I was
because they
just getting
had the
ready to
most
bring that up.
money. And the same thing. Look, this NASCAR, you got to understand this. This is how it is across every single sport. You got to have parity. It is what it is. We're really seeing it in college athletics right now. Whoever has the most money is going to win the most games. Plain and simple. Take Major League Baseball, for example. Some years you're not going to have it, but last year we had the two highest payrolls play for the World Series. There's no coincidence in that. The most money is going to win. Why? Because most money gets the most talent, the best drivers, the best engineers, the best um, uh, pit teams, and things like that. Heck, go listen to Action Detrimental talking about Denny's pit crew and his Jackman, the new little move that he's learned and how he goes behind his back. And it's unbelievable. But this is what happens, man. This is how it is. NASCAR wanted to create parity, more winners, make it more entertaining. That what they've done is just make everyone run exactly the same. And the teams who have the advantage still have the advantage because they can find that little 100th of a tenth that uh, Spire can't find. Hendrick can find it. Even though they're alliances, they're not going to share that stuff with
They're not
them.
going to share it. Nope.
Another thing Denny talked about today that I hadn't even thought about, SMT data. He talked about how when they would go to Martinsville there for a while, he was on a tear in Martinsville. And when you used to go to watch a race in Martinsville, who was going to win? Jeff Gordon, Jimmy
Yeah.
Johnson, or Denny Hamlin. You had the random Ryan Newman thrown in there, or Tony
Or
Stewart,
in the Dale
but other
Jr.
or Junior. But who you knew there, you knew who was going to win that race. And then they start sharing data, and then all of a sudden, the tricks are gone. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can see what you're doing, man. Get rid of that crap. I think there is some benefit to it, but the more I think about it, I'm like, why are we doing this? Like Denny even talked about it. He went and studied. He just couldn't figure out why Martin Truex Jr. was so much better than him there because they had the same car when they were on the same team before they switched to the next gen. He's like, I just went and studied the data, watched what Martin did, and he goes, he can remember one race they went out there and Martin was so much better, and then there was a rain delay. So he said, I went back in my trailer, I looked at the data, I figured out what he was doing, I went back out there and I ran it the same way he was, and I was like, okay, I can do that, but my car's not set up for it. So what did he do? He fixed his car, and then he's running about the same speed as Martin. Why are we sharing S&T? I do think there's some benefit to it, but and I
Now,
know it's not S&T data now; it's NASCAR. But it's another
was
one of
that
those
before?
things.
Was that before or after Truex was his teammate?
During, during.
Okay.
So, there
See,
was
I
going to
don't
be some
mind
sharing
that.
there with team. I don't mind sharing with the
Yeah, I don't
teams. I
mind
don't think it
that.
should
Like the
be there, but
teammates, I don't mind that. But the
why
whole
are we
thing and
letting?
the whole thing, kit and caboodle, having the same access. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't have the same. Everybody shouldn't have the same access to the same data.
Mm-hmm,
I'm not saying that. But at a certain
I am.
extent, like that's what. Well, like, but I'm saying like at a certain extent, like you know, you got to have some disparity.
You
Like you got
gotta have it, man.
like
You gotta have
like Hendricks.
comers. You gotta
Hendricks
have
gonna run
goers.
better. JGR is gonna run better because they're gonna have. I mean, yes. Can they employ more people? Yes. Can they hire analytic staff? Yes. Like, and that's just. I mean, I'm sorry that other teams can't, but at the same time, like. There's so many alliances now too. Like, we talk about the Wood Brothers. We talk about,
Mm-hmm.
the Aspire. We talk about teams like that of like, you're already getting some of the stuff from these bigger teams anyway. So, you know, if you want to get better. And that's kind of going where I was kind of going with my data sharing point of like, sure, you shared data within your teams, but then like, why is Hendrick seeing the same data that JGR seeing? Why, why is RFK seeing the same data? Granted, they probably need it right now. But why are they seeing the same data that Hendrick's seeing? Like, You know what I'm
I'm sure
saying?
there's some
Like it
benefits
just
to it.
makes.
I'm sure
I mean,
someone who's a little
sure,
bit more
but
educated than you and I
but
could try to
but it
convince us
takes.
as to why it is.
But
But
but to me, and maybe this is just me not being in the know because we're just casual fans. But like, where's the competitiveness of it? Like, hey, no, man, this is mine. Like, don't cheat off my paper. Like, where's the competitive want to go? Wherewithal to want to go out and just dominate your freaking competitor. I just
and
one
there's
other
no
thing that I want to say. They're too nice nowadays. And I'll say that for athletics all around nowadays, most of the time. It's too nice nowadays. And
yeah,
I get it, like sportsmanship. Hey, great job, whatever. But like, growing up for us, I mean, you know, it's like, driver gets pissed off. He's like, all right, like I'm gonna, you gonna remember next time I pass you. Or, when it actually comes down to it. I mean, Matt Kenseth,
yeah.
Joey Logano, at Martinsville,
Well, now we're
nonetheless.
walking that line of Xfinity issues. But I get what you're
We
saying.
are,
There's
and I'm not
sometimes you
saying
got to
that.
set an
It's
example.
you
But what we
do.
saw
So
Saturday was different than that. No, I get
that's
your
a
point.
that's just being an idiot. But
Yeah, yeah,
to actually be skilled in the Cup Series and being able to kind of move the person out of the way. It was like
yep.
I was telling my wife. I said after the race we were driving back home and of course I had a long hour and a half to talk and you can imagine how that went. And so, and I'm sitting there saying, I'm like, growing up, it was like, hey, I'm riding behind you for 5 laps, 6 laps, and I'm faster than you, and you're not getting out of my way, and I've already
You get
bumped
a
you a
love
little
tap,
bit
and
just to let you know
then
I'm
you're moving.
here.
Yep,
Guess what? I'm going to move you this next time. And that doesn't
yep,
mean run you up into the wall. It doesn't mean spin you out. That means I'm going to put the bumper under, your left rear quarter, your left rear bumper and kind of just give you enough shove to kind of push you up. And then I'm going to put my right fender under you and just go. And
yep.
and it makes it a little harder now at Martinsville with the strips down and, and stuff like that right there in the turns. But, because, if you get up on them things, I mean, you're going to get all out of sorts. So, um, but yeah, I need to see that competitiveness edge again. I just don't feel
Yeah.
like the guys want it.
There's so many ways NASCAR can fix this. But they're just being stubborn about it, and it's just annoying. But people saying this race was boring. I wasn't bored at all at the race. Yeah, my
No,
driver was kicking tail and taking names, leading over 250 some odd laps. I mean, dominating, just a good old butt whooping. But I was watching the rest of the field too, and I'm like, this is a pretty good race. It wasn't great. It's not what we've seen at Martinsville before, but what we've seen at Martinsville since 2022, yeah, it's pretty good. You know what I mean? It's not bad, but as I was explaining in our group chat with some of our buddies, I think what you had this weekend was this. You had a dominant car in the 11, and it was a legal dominant car because it passed inspection. I'm not going to lie, him kicking tail like that, I was a little nervous till that tweet came through. I was like, did they find a little something that might get exposed? But then you had really good cars in Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace. Shout out to Bubba, one of the best runs he's had at Martinsville. Um,
Chase
Ross
Elliott.
Chastain, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Ryan Preece. So you had Joey Logano before he got spun, and even then,
Joey
after he
Logano,
got
I think
spun,
at
he
the
was coming through
I,
the field like
I
there was
think at
no
the end of the
tomorrow.
race, the top three cars in the race, in my opinion, and I'm going to say this, and I know I'm not trying to be biased here, but were Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Joey Logano.
100%.
Those are the three best cars in the race. And Joey even said it when he spun out. I went and watched his radio too, and he's like, I know we weren't expecting to really probably win this thing. He was like, we were going to get a top five.
Mm-hmm.
And they sure as would have. And I don't know, man, the way and then Grant, they pitted, they got new tires,
Yeah,
blah,
but
blah,
still,
blah. But yeah,
it
no,
was a good car.
that car was great.
So you think it's boring, but then if you look at it, you're like, okay, you had a really good car that no one was going to pass. I think back to the Xfinity race a few years ago that you didn't come to that we're texting about. Who was it that dominated that race? They were in the 20. Now I can't even remember who it was. It was driving it that particular day. It may have been Ty. No, it wasn't Ty. Ty didn't drive the 20. He drove the 54. Um, Anyways, that's neither here
I
nor
don't know.
there. Oh no, it was John Hunter Nemechek. That's who it was. I was like, he's in Cup now. It was John
Yeah,
Hunter
that's it.
Nemechek. He
Yeah.
kicked everyone's rear end. But what was going on throughout the rest of the field? You had some good racing going on. So I think one reason people thought it was boring, people don't like Denny, and God forbid that he'll win something every now and then. Was everyone going to lose their mind if John Cena wins at WrestleMania? Because we all know it's coming, right? um, he had that. And then Fox probably did. I have not gone back and watched it. I will say this. just out of pure speculation, because I know how they've been all this year, they probably weren't doing all that good of showing what was going on throughout the race. I know at one point they were showing two guys that looked exactly like each other and also looked like John Daly. I don't know if you've seen that picture going around. And all I can think about is who Lord knows what Clint Boyer's saying about this right now. But it, it was not boring like people said it was. It was not. It was a dominant performance that happens once in a while. And then you just had 8 really good cars after that who were good enough that with the current package that they have to run, because this is a NASCAR thing, couldn't pass each other. They could, but not as much. And then on top of it, it's March. If this same race was going on in November or October, people would have been doing a lot more to move around. So let's not overreact. I think, could we get a little bit more aggressive with the time? We're at an hour, so I'm going to start speeding this up a little bit because I could go on all night on this if I wanted to. But we could do a little bit more with the tire if Goodyear can. I know, like I said, we're reaching that point, but you got to do something with these cars, man. You got to do something with these cars. Like, we're 4 years into this thing now. It's pretty apparent what the problem is. Do something about it because you're losing fans. We even talked about how that's probably one of the worst attended races at Martinsville that I can remember in a very, very long time.
Yeah, you can usually bank on the front stretch being full. That thing was empty.
I mean, the whole stadium, what would you say, 60, maybe 65% full?
I
Maybe.
don't know, man. You're being a little generous. I was
It was
thinking
more
more
than
like
half. It was more than
I,
half.
I was gonna say like 55. I mean, because
Yeah.
turns 3 and 4 were pretty scarce. The front stretch, like I said, the front stretch was in turn one were as scarce as I have ever seen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
ever seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the front stretch and turns one are insanely packed. But they were scarce. Turn two, I will say, middles of turn 1 and 2 and all the way over to us, I thought was
Pretty
pretty
good crowd.
full.
About normal
Yeah,
for
in
that
that
area.
section.
Maybe
Yeah,
a little
so
light.
I mean, I'll give you 60%. I can't go more than that though. Like I said,
Yeah.
I was really, especially with, and I get it. Everybody's gonna say, oh, there was anticipation of the weather, and I understand. That's cool, but I mean, I still
Weeks ago,
think,
when I bought our tickets, I told you, it's like we can sit wherever we want, whatever we want to pay, we can
you
sit
did.
wherever we want. And I think it's because people are probably just wanting to come to the fall race now because the
Hmm.
action's not like what it used to be. So fix it, NASCAR. We're sitting over Saturday. I'm like, Cody, there's no campers in the field over there behind the thing. I'm like, there's
So
no one here.
I went back late last night too after I started to go to bed, and I was laying in the bed, and I went to the NASCAR Classics website. Which, by the way, if anybody hasn't been to that website,
It's
please go
fantastic.
watch all the
Yeah.
races. It's yeah, the library is great. And I just was picked a random Martinsville race, and I picked '01. And I took a screenshot of my phone. I meant to send it to you today, and I forgot. But it was an aerial view of Martinsville Speedway in '01. And so it literally the campground was full behind the train tracks, all the cars and everything. It was
Awesome.
fantastic.
Awesome. Hang on, we lost the recording. Oh, it started back. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Go
should
ahead.
be good. So
Yeah.
started to send you that screenshot. It was fantastic. I mean, just looking at it in '01 and looking at the field being full with the campers behind the train tracks, looking at, all the cars out, just parked everywhere. I mean, it was fantastic. And I would give anything to have that back. I know we'll never see the likes of that again. But, still to not have hardly any campers in the behind the train tracks, that's depressing.
Yeah. That's a story for another day. Again, it's not a track issue. It's not a track issue.
It's
It's
not.
not a track issue. I'll leave it
And
at
we're not,
that.
and
For I don't even know
take the
who that
bias
random
out of it.
random person on X was talking about they should lose a race. Like, no, no. What are we going to replace it with? We NASCAR's already tried, and here I go again. I can keep going. I'll just leave it at this. We already tried a long time ago putting in a bunch of cookie cutter mile and a halves, and that's led us to where we are now. That led us to
Yep.
people got tired of seeing boring races at mile and a half. So NASCAR then creates a car that's good at mile and a half. And what's happened? We've ruined everything else. I know you say the Speedway is good. The Speedway's okay. It's not Speedway racing like it used to be, super Speedway racing. So even then, like all they've done is create a car that's good at the mile and a half. So check that one off the list. Now let's fix it everywhere else, man. Like, gosh.
Yep.
Whatever. Let's move it on. We'll be talking on here till 2 a.m. if we wanted to. Let's move to the final stage here, man. Darlington this weekend. That's one that we got to do. We got to go down to that one. I've been wanting to go to Darlington for a long time. We got to make that one happen, buddy. Um,
That's on the bucket
sh-
list. So
should be a good race. This car, we talked about it, does good at tracks like this. Put on a pretty good show at Darlington this year. I remember last year's race was fantastic, seeing Kozlowski and Reddick battle that one out. Even I guess I think Busher was up there too, if I'm not mistaken.
mhm.
RFK had a good weekend there, so should be a good race. Throwback weekend. I haven't had a chance to look at a lot of them, but what's your favorite throwback paint scheme that you've seen so far?
Oh, um, gosh, now that you asked me, like I've seen a bunch. Honestly, I've really been keeping up with it, and I really can't even remember now because it's 11 o'clock. We've been ranting for an hour,
Yeah.
but I saw Joey's today. It was an old Pennzoil scheme, throwing back to I think it was also a Kel Yarborough Pennzoil scheme. I
Okay.
saw that one today. That was pretty cool. Old style numbers. It's not the best one I've seen. I know Ryan Blaney's throwing it back to I think it was an Bush Series car that his dad won in. He's throwing that one back. That was a pretty cool scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Kyle
also know
Larson's Terry
yeah,
Labonte
he's
scheme.
that's the one
Yeah.
with throwing the Kellogg's. I really
Mm-hmm.
do like that one. I know William Byron's throwing back the 2015 Jeff Gordon Silver car. I'm a little biased on that one. I really was hoping they would never run that one again, considering Gordon retired in that car. But I'm biased.
I
So
like
yeah,
Denny's throwing it back to Carl
then
Edwards
he's
off the
got the Carl
depot.
Edwards
Yeah,
one.
that one should be
Yep.
pretty cool.
I do like that one. And then there's somebody is doing it's not STP, but somebody is doing one like the John Andretti paint scheme to honor
Mm,
him.
mm,
RIP John Andretti. But yeah, I always liked that paint scheme growing up, the blue and orange on the 43 with the
mm.
STP. So that might be my favorite to be honest. That one or probably the Kyle Larson one probably because the Kellogg scheme was always really cool.
It's neat that they do this, but we're about ran our course with it. Not gonna be able to throw it back much more in the next
I
couple of
mean,
years.
soon they're gonna be running throwbacks to their own cars.
Then he's gonna throw it back to a FedEx here in a little bit. He needs to get
Dude,
FedEx on for one more race at Darlington and do a
please,
throwback to his rookie
please,
year. That would be pretty cool, especially the
that'd
black
be
FedEx. I always like the black FedEx cars.
yeah, same.
All right, man. Well, just off the cut, who do you like this weekend?
Well, before this weekend, I would have said Denny Hamlin. I don't know. I mean, he could win two in a row. I don't, I don't know. I hadn't given it a lot of thought today, other than just like I said, I would have. You asked me last week, I'd have said Denny. Um, my pick to win this week, I'll go. I'm gonna go Reddick. I'm gonna go Tyler Reddick again. I think I'm gonna pick him this week because he hasn't won yet. He ran good there
Mm-hmm.
last year.
2311's
Um,
been pretty good this year.
yeah, him and Busher got into it and kind of cost them both the win there. I think, right? Wasn't that right? And
Well, Reddick ended up winning, but
he did
yeah,
win.
they got
Okay,
into it. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. So,
So this should be good. Yeah.
yeah, I'll go with Reddick because he's due.
RFK, this is their chance to reset the season. They got to come into this thinking, okay, we were really good here last year. This is our chance to get everybody back on track. They've kind of disappointed. We talked about that earlier tonight, but um, Byron usually runs pretty good here. Willie
I
B.
thought that.
I want to use him in my fantasy, but somehow or another, I've like used him in every race except this weekend, so I need to save him. Although Willie B's always hot to start the year and then cools off.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if Larson. This is Larson's kind of track, but
I thought
you
about
don't
that
think
too.
Larson when you think of Darlington. Denny's carrying some momentum here. Would not surprise me again. I mean, JGR ticked off three in a row earlier this year. What's to
Hmm.
say they won't turn around and do something like that again? Um, but I'm with you. I kind of like 2311 or maybe a Hendrick car. But don't count the Fords out. Fords are fast as long as they don't blow up or lose a battery. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
Joey could win this one too. I mean,
Yeah,
Joey could
yeah.
carry that speed from last week to this week. So, wouldn't mind seeing Bubba get up there. I wouldn't mind seeing him He's strung two third place finishes back to back, and I don't know. Maybe he catches it right, and maybe he gets that win this week.
He could. He very well could. Well, man, this has been a long one, but I think this is one of the best podcasts we've had to date. Um, it was good, man. It was fun. Yeah, we'll try to get you guys next week. Cody, I'll be seeing you Thursday night. We roll into town late for our golf trip. As Ben and I told you yesterday, we'll have a mint on the pillow for you as you get in real late. There, I will guarantee you will probably still be awake by the time you come into there. So, first night we've all hung out together in 3 years. I doubt we'll be asleep. So,
Okay.
yeah, looking forward to that, and don't know how much of the race we'll actually get to watch Sunday because we're playing golf and then traveling back home. But I imagine both of us will record it and go back and watch it. So next week's pod might be a little bit later than this one, just for everything we got going on. But as always, man, pleasure. Appreciate it, buddy.
Appreciate it, man.
Uh, for everyone else listening, we appreciate it as always, and thank you for listening to the Stage Racing Podcast.